Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome to another video. So today, we're going to talk about a legal drug that about 90% of us use on a daily basis. And that drug is caffeine. Yeah, caffeine's a drug. Did you ever try quitting it for a couple of days and see how you felt? Now, I utilize caffeine on a daily basis. My source of caffeine is pretty much from a cup of black coffee. I typically have a cup in the morning, and then sometimes I have another cup before I work out. Now, there's something about caffeine that gives you this indestructible energy for hitting PRs, running longer, staying longer at work, or if you're still in school, studying for exams. 3 things we'll cover in today's video. We'll do a quick overview of what caffeine is and how it works. Number 2, does it actually help your exercise performance, or are you just psyching yourself out? And 3, where does caffeine fit into your training regimen? So, let's get to it. So what is caffeine? Caffeine, the chemical compound is 1,3,7-trimethylxanthine. I know, just speak English, man. Let's carry on. This is one of the most widely consumed psychoactive substances. Yes, psychoactive substances that are legal and naturally found in dozens of plant species, including coffee beans, including tea leaves, and also cocoa. So when you actually take in a source of caffeine, whether it's from your coffee, whether it's from your pre-workout, energy drink, it appears in your bloodstream pretty quickly. It's absorbed in the mouth, it's absorbed through our entire gastrointestinal tract, so the stomach, the intestinal linings. Most of the absorption occurs in that small intestine region. The main action of caffeine is on the central nervous system, and this is through antagonism of the adenosine receptors. Yo, Jake, slow down, man, you got me lost there. Don't worry, we're gonna go into a little bit of explanation. Adenosine is a compound that when it binds to these specific receptors in your brain, it causes things to kind of calm down. So when adenosine builds up, your body's kind of slowing down, you might get tired throughout the day, and it decreases concentration and release of all of these chemicals called neurotransmitters. Now, a couple of these neurotransmitters are serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and glutamate. Some of these might sound familiar to you, some of them might not. That's totally fine. All of these neurotransmitters play specific roles in our body, and some of these functions include feeling good, improving cognition and memory, making us feel energetic, giving us this burst of energy throughout the day. So if you think about it, when these concentrations of these chemicals are decreased, you're gonna feel a little tired, you're gonna feel a little bit lethargic, maybe you can't concentrate, maybe you don't really have that motivation throughout the day. Now what caffeine does is in the nervous system, like I mentioned, it binds to these receptors, so it prevents that adenosine from binding to those receptors. So it actually causes the opposite effect. It allows release of these chemicals, allows these concentrations of these chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and glutamate to increase. Now, when we have an increase in these chemicals, you're gonna feel a lot more energetic. You know, you might feel like you have improved focus, improved memory throughout the day. You feel pretty good. Now, you know, everybody responds a little bit differently to caffeine, so we'll talk a little about that later. So we'll jump into some studies on caffeine and endurance. There was a meta-analysis that identified 21 studies. And what these 21 studies showed when they compiled all the data was there was a 5.6% reduction in RPE, so the rate of perceived exertion, during exercise following caffeine ingestion. An average improvement in performance of 11% was reported across all exercise modalities. Now, this meta-analysis established that reduction in RPE explained up to 29% of the variance in the improvement of exercise performance. So why is this a good thing? So first we have to explain RPEs, rates of perceived exertion. Now, let's say your RPE 9 for bodyweight pull-ups is 12 reps. That means that for 12 reps, it felt pretty damn hard, and you still should have maybe 1 rep left in the tank where you'll be able to do it without compromising form. So you do it with one good pull-up with good form. RPE 10 is your maximum amount of reps that you could do without compromising form. Now, in these trials, they found a 5.6% reduction in RPE when these athletes consumed caffeine. That pretty much means that now, if you're doing 12 reps of bodyweight pull-ups, but then that would decrease it to maybe an RPE 8 or RPE 7. That means that set got a lot easier for you. And a RPE 7 or an RPE 8, that means you would have about 2 to 3 good reps left in the tank for that set. Now, that's good because over time, you want your RPEs to kind of go down. That means the set's getting a lot easier with that specific weight that you're doing. Or if you're doing body weight pull-ups, then it's a lot easier to do those 12 reps of body weight pull-ups compared to how it was, maybe a couple of weeks ago. There was another trial out there with Green and their colleagues showed that when subjects were instructed to cycle at a specific RPE effort under caffeine conditions, the higher perceived intensity did not necessarily result in greater work and improved performance in all subjects equally. So these are some unexpected findings. There might be some confounding factors here where there's different rates of caffeine metabolism. Some people respond a little bit differently to caffeine as well. However, other studies have shown that it enhances strength but not muscular endurance. And when studies have examined multiple strength muscular endurance tests, there were benefits across the board, either none at all or even impairments in muscular endurance with caffeine use. So other studies demonstrated that it may enhance strength but not muscular endurance, and then some showed none at all. And then some even showed an impairment in muscular endurance. And we'll talk a little bit about this with variability in caffeine tolerance and variability in caffeine metabolism too, and a little bit of trial and error with those. What about for muscular strength and power? Despite the numerous studies out there, there is some uncertainty surrounding the benefits of caffeine in this area. But what researchers believe is that caffeine may delay muscle fatigue, but this is not consistent amongst all studies again. Now, Warren and colleagues, an effect of caffeine ingestion on muscular strength and endurance. This was a big meta-analysis. What they reported was there was about a 2 to 7% change in improving muscular strength. Now, these are small improvements, but even small increments throughout time, can compound over time, especially when it comes to strength training and increasing your PRs. Now, there's lots of research out there, but there's mixed results. Now, that's why we have the International Society of Sports Nutrition. And what they do is they come together and they create a consensus on compiling all of the research out there, all of the meta-analyses, all of the reviews out there, and they come up with a document with the recommendation. Overall, the consensus of the ISSN is that, doses of caffeine ranging from 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram and supplemented 60 minutes before exercise is likely to have an acute enhancement effects in caffeine. Why the 3 to 6 milligram per kilogram recommendation? Well, this was the doses that were typically studied in a lot of these clinical trials. And we also have to follow the maximum recommended dose of caffeine per day by the Food and Drug Administration, which is do not exceed more than 400 milligrams of any type of caffeine source throughout the day. That's the maximum allowable amount that is considered safe. Doses higher than that, and of course this depends on your caffeine tolerance, will lead to some side effects. So you may be asking, what are some side effects of caffeine? Well, insomnia, sleep disturbances, may increase your heart rate throughout the day, may cause anxiety, may worsen your anxiety if you currently deal with anxiety right now. If you do have high blood pressure, it could actually exacerbate that high blood pressure. And then others could be stomach upset and nausea throughout the day as well. So where does it fit into your lifestyle and your training regimen? Now, you're the one that understands your body the best. Some people are very sensitive to caffeine, which may completely impair their exercise performance, whereas others have extremely high tolerance. Now, what do I mean by it actually impairing your exercise performance? If you ingest too much caffeine that is beyond your tolerance of caffeine, you may experience jitteriness, your heart rate's racing all over the place, which might make it a little bit harder for you to focus on your workouts. You might not feel that great during your workout. You might start to feel a little bit dizzy, lightheadedness. You might get those cold sweats. So that's when you typically know that you may have taken a caffeine dose that is way too high for you. Whereas for me, I have a pretty high caffeine tolerance. So what I like to do is, since I work a desk job, it requires a lot of cognitive work, a lot of mental work. I need a lot of focus. So I drink a cup of black coffee in the morning when I'm working. And then if I'm training in the afternoon, sometimes I will have a cup of coffee in the afternoon before that. But typically my cup of coffee is about 150 milligrams to 200 milligrams per cup. And I try not to go over that 400 milligrams per day. Now that's a dose that works well for me. But what happens sometimes is if I stack on way too much caffeine and I'm going to work out, When I noticed that I consume too much caffeine throughout the day, I typically can't get a good pump, regardless of what body part I'm working out. I get anxious, my heart's racing, I get the cold sweats. That's when I know I may have exceeded my tolerance of caffeine, or I exceeded that dose that's good for me. I also sometimes have my morning workouts. So I like to start my day at 5:30 in the morning by getting a morning workout. I like to keep a general rule for myself is I try not to rely too heavily on caffeine for my workouts. So if I'm doing my morning workouts, I do a fasted workout. I consume 0 caffeine before that workout as well. I allow my body to naturally wake up. And then my afternoon workouts will also depend on, how I'm feeling. Did I have caffeine throughout the week for my other workouts? And the reason why is this, I don't want to become dependent on caffeine for my training days. Because if you start to consume more caffeine, your body will eventually build up a tolerance to it. And what that means is you'll require a higher dose or require more pre-workout, more caffeine throughout the weeks if you keep consuming it every single day. And then you eventually start to become dependent on an external substance to have a quote unquote good workout. Most often what it requires is you to get into the gym without any caffeine, have a proper warm up. Once you hit that first set, you feel fantastic. So what if you decide to incorporate caffeine into your training regimen and into your lifestyle? Of course, first things first is always talk to your doctor beforehand, get screened, because if you have any medical conditions like high blood pressure, any heart conditions, if you have anxiety, if you have insomnia, consumption of caffeine can exacerbate some of these. And what I mean by exacerbate, it could worsen your blood pressure, it could worsen your anxiety throughout the day, it can worsen your insomnia. So get screened first. Also, your body best too. And once you get screened for everything to be a-okay, do a little bit of trial and error. And you know your body best. I would not suggest hopping onto pre-workouts on the market at first, because some of those pre-workouts have a whopping dose of 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine. And if you've never tried it out yet, that might be way too much for you. I would suggest with starting off with a smaller dose. They have small energy drinks out there that are about 100 milligrams of caffeine per serving. Make a small cup of coffee, see how you respond, and go from there. Typically, the timing of caffeine is about 30 to 60 minutes before a workout. Now, try not to take caffeine too close to bedtime. My cutoff is around 3 or 4 p.m. as well. I'll have my last cup of coffee. That's my general rule, because I go to sleep at about 9:30 p.m., 10 p.m., so I can wake up at 5 o'clock again. Now, the reason why I say that is because the caffeine half-life is about 4 to 6 hours. Now, I know you're thinking, what the heck is half-life? Can you speak English, please? So let me explain. Half-life is the amount of time it takes for your body to eliminate half of that dose that you just consumed. So let's use an example. Let's say you consume 200 milligrams of caffeine at 3 p.m. Now, the half-life being about 4 to 6 hours, so about 9 o'clock is where you'll still have about 100 milligrams of caffeine left in your body. And you might be able to go to sleep perfectly fine, but that 100 milligrams is still circulating throughout your body, causing a release of all these chemicals, neurotransmitters. Your body's still being stimulated while you sleep. You're gonna get poor quality sleep, and you're gonna wake up pretty groggy and not fully recovered the next day. And I mentioned that the half-life of caffeine is 4 to 6 hours, but that's just an average. The variability comes in what your caffeine tolerance is and what your metabolism is. There are some people who are actually fast metabolizers of caffeine out there, and they break down caffeine pretty quickly. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you again for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe so you won't miss any future videos that I post. If you benefited from this content, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and share it with somebody who might benefit from this video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.